on. Ready?
Yeah, perhaps we should wait just a second for the attendees to populate.
Yes. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Yeah. I see it. Let's see if there's any more.
Okay, should be good.
Great. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm now like to call to order. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call to order the March 16th session of the Half Moon Bay City Council meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Penrose?
Here.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Here.
Councilmember Rohrbeck?
Here.
Vice Mayor Ruddick?
Here.
Mayor Brownstone?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have everything worked out with our interpretation and instructions? We need to give our instructions, you feel? Yeah.
Yeah, hold on one second. Victor Hernandez, would you mind providing the translation instructions?
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, muy buenas noches. Me llamo Víctor Hernández, soy un traductor del español y les voy a estar proveyendo lo que es la interpretación simultánea esta noche para la reunión al concejal. Para poder accesar lo que es la función de interpretación, por favor, busquen hacia el fondo de su pantalla el símbolo o el icono del mundo. Allí hagan clic en ese icono o el mundo y después seleccionen su idioma, que en este instante será el español, para recibir la traducción en español. Gracias. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Victor. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We will now open up our public forum. And for those who may be joining us for the first time, during public forum, we entertain comments on anything that's not on our actual agenda. So any other comments, anything anyone would like to speak to, and we give each person 3 minutes. If you would like to make a comment, there's 2 ways to do that. One is you might see on the bottom of your screen a raise hand feature. Also, if you go into your participant list, you'll also see an option to raise your hand on the bottom. And once you raise your hand, Jessica will call on you. So again, we have 3 minutes allotted to each speaker. And on your screen, you'll actually see a timer will show up. And you'll get 30-second reminder when you're coming up at the end of the 3 minutes. Okay.
Thank you. First, we have Wayne Lee. Wayne, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Brownstone and members of City Council. My name is Wayne Lee, former council member from City of Millbrae and president of the San Mateo County Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. I just wanted to inform you that we were having a seminar, a discussion with Sheriff Carlos Bolanos, District Attorney Steve Wagstaff, and co-founder Stop API Hate, Asian Pacific Islander Hate, Dr. Russell Jiang, led by Mayor Jessalyn Manalo on March 27th, 11 to noon. You can register at www.smcapi.org. And this is all about the assaults against Asians. And we just want to also piggyback on the note that was sent by Councilmember Anders Fungs from Millbrae. As you know, a lot of Asians, particularly elderly, are being attacked around the country. This is a result of what's been happening around the nation in the past administration. Although we believe that all lives should be respected at this juncture, Asians are the ones who are being targeted for assaults. And before then, it was immigrants, and then it was Blacks. So we as a caucus want to bring diversity and equality to our county. And a few things that we would like to point out. First of all, you like Mowbray are contracting with the Sheriff's Department. We're doing a great job. I know Sheriff Bolanos is dedicated to equality and fighting any hate crime vigorously. And I'm pretty sure he's doing that for your community as well. Against any race, any xenophobia, or any type of discrimination against any person with sex or religious leaning. So we just thank the Sheriff's Department, but we also have a few things that we would like to suggest that you as a city consider. One thing is to strengthen your public communications for your Asian community, probably any other community that are prevalent. I'm pretty sure Council Member Joaquin's on that, and I really noticed that you have an interpreter, which is awesome. Okay, and then also we like to suggest that you put more resources in teaching children what racism is, what xenophobia is, and different types of tropes of racism. We ask you to hire Asian-speaking community officers or any other other community officers to help people navigate the law enforcement and safety programs. And we also ask that we suggest that you hire and have more law enforcement who speak non-English, and so they can help people access your safety officers. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, you feel free to contact us at our website, smcapi.org. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other hands raised?
I don't.
I don't see any either. Okay, wait another second. All right then, the public forum is now closed. Thank you for your participation. And we're now going to move on to proclamations and presentations. And tonight I do have a very special commendation to present. The City of Half Moon Bay is proud to recognize personnel from the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office here on the coast side for their bravery and professionalism in an uncertain and dangerous situation, and for ensuring the safety of the community, their own staff, and that of the suspect involved. And I'd like to recap the situation to those watching this meeting for a little context. This was an incident late at night last September when deputies responded to a report of shots being fired in Cameron's RV park here in Half Moon Bay. Obviously, that's one of the most dangerous calls to respond to. The sheriff's office deployed multiple deputies to the scene. When they got to the scene, they themselves heard at least a dozen shots being fired from inside the RV park. The incident escalated when the suspect, who lived at the RV park, lit his own trailer on fire, then creating an increasingly hazardous situation. Fortunately, some of the residents already self-evacuated and others were sheltering in place. The responding deputies were able to locate the suspect, who they determined was armed with a handgun. The next step in intervening in such a crisis was to negotiate with the suspect to try and reach a peaceful resolution. During that dialogue, the suspect dropped his handgun and attempted to flee on bicycle. After numerous commands to stop and get on the ground, which were ignored by the suspect, one deputy was able to subdue the suspect, who was taken into custody. Then CAL FIRE was then able to enter the area and extinguish the fire, and deputies determined that there were no gunshot victims. Thanks to these deputies, there were no injuries to any residents, to any of the public safety staff, or to the suspect. We've prepared a resolution of commendation for those involved in this incident that cites their bravery, professionalism, and outstanding use of their crisis intervention tactics that evening. So, on behalf of the City of Half Moon Bay, I'd like to offer our gratitude and admiration to the following members of the San Mateo County's Sheriff's Office for their services that evening. They are Lieutenant Kelly Smith, Sergeant John Carroll, Sergeant Torsten Sommer, Deputy John Baba, Deputy James Brown, Deputy Daniel Cuevas, Deputy David de Guzman, Deputy Richard Deschler, Deputy Matthew Klingel, Deputy Michael Kohler, Deputy Christopher Leddy, Deputy Danielle Martinez, Deputy Eric Mitchell, Deputy Bradley Mulvihill, and Deputy Timothy Pyle. Congratulations and thanks to all of you. Okay. Our next item is we are getting a presentation update from Claire, who I believe is here from the Mid-Coast Council.
You can hear me?
We can, Claire, thank you.
Yeah, great. Claire Toutant, Mid-Coast Community Council. I'll just bring you up to date on some of the things that are happening in the Mid-Coast. First, the Cypress Point Mid-Penn Affordable Housing Complex in Montara passed its first test with the Coastal Commission this week. The Coastal Commission approved the county's changes in policy that needed to be approved in order to proceed with the project. So that's where that is. The next big topic is about fire and emergency issues, which is one of our focuses for this year. We had a presentation at the last meeting, which was excellent, on fire risk in El Granada. This is available on our website. You might want to take a look at it if you're interested. The gist of it being that very real risks emanate from Quarry Park and could affect the whole coast side very easily in terms of an out of control fire. This has implications for emergency evacuations, which many people are now saying are impossible. We will not be able to evacuate the coast side. The planning is more geared at this point toward assembly centers, like at the airport or something, where people can congregate and wait until things die down, which seems a little dire. There are different approaches to this whole problem. The Parks Department has an approach that they're putting together and will present to us shortly. In the process, we've been identifying a number of community resources. One of the good things about the coast side is there are a lot of very smart, well-trained people who are able to be involved in things. And we have identified several people who have very strong backgrounds in urban forestry and fire management and emergency planning, who I hope will be involved in the whole topic soon. Kellex Nelson from the Resource Conservation District is helping coordinate the county's approach to fire planning. They are currently providing a chipper program where they bring a chipper around the different neighborhoods and people can chop up whatever kind of wood debris they happen to have around. And that's a free program that's very popular. Related to fire and tangentially is the ongoing issue of the very extensive lighting at the new El Granada Fire Station, and that continues to be negotiated. The other big topic is infrastructure. There have been presentations by the Montara Water and Sanitary District looking at their overall operations, and those are available on their website and on YouTube, and I think they're actually worth looking at too. They are currently in the process of constructing storage tanks at the Burnham Strip, which will be underground beneath the new park facilities. These tanks are supposed to be holding 400,000 gallons of wet water overflow that can be held safely until it can make its way down to the sand plant. There are already some holding tanks there. This is kind of an innovative way of approaching the wet weather problem. And you may have followed this on Nextdoor. They've had a whole series about how the construction is going. The county multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan, we took a little bit of a look at that and found that many of our local mid-coast agencies are not involved in that plan. There's currently an effort to reach out to Granada Community Services, Montera Water and Sewer, Coastside Water, Harbor District, and SAM, and any of those who are not currently involved in that, we're hoping will be involved so that we can have a more comprehensive approach to potential hazards on the mid-coast and in Half Moon Bay. Those are the highlights of what we're looking at the moment. And if there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take them. Debbie.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to AB 9 from Assemblymember Wood. It's undergoing amendments to create regional fire frameworks and plans. And this at the insistence of many cities and special districts who don't want centralized control of the fire money, you know, in Sacramento. And I saw the amendments and they're quite good. So you might wait a few days and then check leginfo.ca.gov and take a look at the bill. The county, I believe, is already looking at it or is aware that amendments are coming. And the city should add it to its list as well. So I think it's a good approach, and I think you guys at MCC would find it meeting a lot of your concerns. So I would recommend taking a look at that.
That's very helpful. Thank you. One of the big problems is funding. That addressing the scope of the problem is extremely expensive.
Yeah, well, the legislature is working on an early action plan. And there's two competing approaches right now in the Senate and the Assembly. The Senate is pushing a 600 million plus package, and the Assembly is around, I think, about 450 million right now. And this would be in advance of like the governor's budgeted amount for wildfires. And this money would start being available in April and May to try to get ahead of the fire season. And again, the county is, Don Horsley is aware of this. So it's something that everybody ought to, get behind. I don't know what the final version is going to be. They're going to reconcile somehow in the next, I think, week or two. So help is on the way. We just got to make sure we get, a piece of the pie. Not just the budgeted amount for the future, but the early action stuff.
Thank you.
Debbie. Any other questions from council? I had one, but anyone else? Yeah, just a quick question, Claire, regarding the Mid-Penn Affordable Housing Project. I read somewhere that 75% of those units would be preferential treatment to folks on the coast. Is that correct?
That is controversial. You hear a number of different things, and I think that part of what makes that unreliable is federal funding that's involved.
Right.
When you have federal funding, that it's very difficult to limit residents in that way. We would very much like it to be almost entirely coastal people. And I think that Mid-Penn is making some effort to do that, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to.
I saw that number recently in an article somewhere, and I thought exactly what you just said. That seemed to be quite a departure based on the funding mechanisms in the past. It's been as low as 30%, so it's just interesting. I was wondering. Okay, that's all I got, and thank you, Claire, for the incredibly informative update, as usual. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda, I don't believe there are any announcements for community activities and community service. Bob, just checking. Is that right? Nothing? No. Great. Catherine, I don't think there's any report out from closed sessions, correct?
No, we've had no recent closed sessions, nothing to report out.
Okay. Then we are going to move on to city manager updates to council, and we'll start with our COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we normally do, I think we're going to start with Jessica Blair tonight. She has an important announcement on the tier that San Mateo County will be in, I think, starting tomorrow. Jessica.
Thank you. Colleen, can you go to the orange tier slide, please?
Is it in presentation view?
No.
Darn it. Now? No, it's not. Hold on. Sorry. This happens to me every time. You'd think I'd learn. Okay.
Thank you. So as City Manager Nisbet mentioned, the County of San Mateo is moving on to the orange tier tonight at midnight, just after midnight. And so what that means is additional openings of businesses are allowed. Shopping malls can open indoors with modifications. Places of worship can now open at 50% capacity or 200 people. Dine-in restaurants are now at 50% capacity or 200 people. Movie theaters can open indoors with modifications. Certain gyms and fitness centers can now open with capacity of 25%. Family entertainment centers such as bowling alleys, outdoor activities can be open with modifications. Amusement parks and theme parks, smaller parks can open, limited to 25% or 500 people, whichever is less. Outdoor attractions only. And then there's additional modifications for hotels, museums, zoos, and aquarium can open with 50% capacity. And there's also updated guidelines for school openings. So next slide, please. And so that's based on, if you look at our positivity rate of 0.72%, we're doing much better as far as transmission of the virus than we have been. So kudos to the community for doing your part with masking and distancing and everything else. And also we have 32% vaccination rate in the county as well as in Half Moon Bay. And so that's helping as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew, who will go over testing and vaccination methods ongoing.
Thanks, Jessica. Next slide, please, Colleen. So with vaccinations, as always, we recommend that people contact their healthcare or primary care provider. That is still going to be the fastest and easiest path to getting vaccinated once you're eligible. In order to determine your eligibility and get notifications about opportunities to get vaccinated, we're encouraging everybody to utilize two sign-up sites. They're different, they work together, and by signing up for both, which only takes a few minutes for each, you have the most information at your fingertips and the best opportunity to get vaccinated. The first is the county's vaccination site, which is at smchealth.org/COVID-19-vaccination. And the state's MyTurn notification site, myturn.ca.gov. Again, both just take a few minutes to register for. Once you're in their system, you will be contacted with any opportunities to get vaccinated once you are eligible. For up-to-date information on the vaccine, we recommend people go to smchealth.org/COVID vaccine or the state's websites, covid19-ca.gov. For those of you who are able to get vaccinated, remember that for Pfizer and Moderna, it's 2 separate doses, 3 weeks to a month apart, and it takes about a month after your second dose to be fully immune. And even then, we really encourage folks to be very careful, not to change their habits, continue to socially distance yourselves, continue to wear masks, and avoid large gatherings. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, before I go on to testing, the criteria that the state has adopted for eligibility for vaccinations continues to change and evolve. And normally we have a pretty comprehensive list, a graphic that shows who's eligible and who's not. I think at this point, the eligibility has become wide enough that it's going to be hard to provide that kind of information. And that's why these sign-up tools are so important.
But the groups that are eligible continue to be 65 and up, healthcare workers, including home healthcare providers, IHSS workers, and then frontline essential workers, which really encompasses a pretty large group of workers. And so I think we'll see more people getting vaccinated in the near future. The other big change, of course, took effect yesterday, and that is that anyone 16 and up with very specific underlying conditions can be vaccinated. These underlying conditions put individuals at higher risk for complications from COVID. If you go to the state website, covid19.ca.gov, that's where you can find details on who's eligible right now and those underlying conditions if you have questions. And if you work with your healthcare provider, they can help you document those underlying conditions as well. We have been really benefited much from the county's efforts to bring vaccinations to hard to reach communities. Over the last month, we've had several on-site and mobile vaccination clinics that have vaccinated several thousand people. And we're really grateful to the county for their efforts. There are not any vaccination clinics scheduled for the coast at this time. As people have probably heard, the state has rerouted many of its vaccines to the Central Valley and other vulnerable parts of the state to make sure that vulnerable folks and equity is being addressed among vaccinations. As soon as the county has better supply in hand, there will be planning in place to bring vaccinations back to the coast side, and we'll work with our community partners to get the word out and get people registered for that. And the county remains committed to bringing vaccinations to the coast once they have an ample supply. Next slide, please. In the meantime, testing continues, and I'm pleased to announce there's an additional testing site on the coast side now. So as always, on Monday evenings, you can come to the Ted Adcock Community Center from 3 to 6 p.m. And pre-registration is recommended, and you can register there on the screen at that site. Additionally, on Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., the county has a testing site at Our Lady of the Pillar Church. That's every Wednesday. And every first and third Thursday, Senior Coastsiders continues to provide tests. It's always been geared towards seniors, but they've opened it up to anybody who's looking for a test later in the week. For all of these, we recommend pre-registration. It's pretty easy. You can do it online. But for all these, you can walk up and get tested if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Next, an announcement on our.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is just an announcement for the council's priority setting workshop. This year, it's Wednesday, March 24th from 11 to 2 via Zoom, of course. So it'll be noticed just like any other council meeting. The council had 2 listening sessions 2 weeks ago, one on March 3rd, one on March 6th. Both those listening sessions lasted a full 2 hours. Many community members came to those meetings and spoke about issues that were important to them, looking ahead to next fiscal year. So we've also been taking comments from the public online, and I think we've wrapped that up. All the information from the 2 listening sessions and the additional feedback we've been getting online will be condensed into a report that will be provided to the council prior to the priority setting workshop. And then we'll go through kind of a facilitated process to look at all the items that are important to the community, that are important to council, and condense those items into essentially what will be the work plan for the council and staff looking ahead to next fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts on July 1st, 2021, and goes through to June 30th of 2022. And given the past year and the pandemic and our response to that pandemic, it does feel that this priority setting workshop will be a very robust conversation. Priorities have certainly changed and adapted with the crisis, the multiple crises that we've been in this past year. So we want to encourage the public to attend this meeting. And we do have a facilitator who will be helping the council and staff get through this process and create these priorities for next year. Eric and Nicole from the firm Extraordinary Balance will be there to help us do that. So again, 11 to 2, March 24th, Wednesday, via Zoom, and that will be noticed through the normal channels for a council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And that concludes our city manager updates to council. Move on to consent calendar. We have 4 items on today's consent calendar. There's no questions or anything to be taken out of the calendar. Would anyone like to make a motion? Debbie? Debbie, I think you're on mute. There you go.
I move that we approve the consent calendar. Item number 1, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. That's 1A. Item 1B, warrants for the month of February 2021. Item 1C, approval of minutes. Item 1D, 2020 Housing Element Annual Progress Report. And that's it.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Penrose.
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach.
Harvey, you're on mute.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Jimenez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick.
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we are going to move on to ordinances, public hearings, and we will have a hearing on item 2A, which is a resolution of necessity authorizing an eminent domain action to acquire real property owned by Thomas Gearing and Daniel Gearing. And I think we'll start with a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be doing the staff report this evening, and I do have some slides. I'm going to wait a moment to get those queued up.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Colleen. All right, so as the mayor just announced, this is a resolution of necessity to authorize the use of eminent domain to acquire 6 parcels in the west of Railroad PD area. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to follow the traditional public hearing format with staff presentation. This was a lengthy staff report, but I do want to note that I'll keep my presentation fairly short because the materials in the staff report and resolution cover things. And then you can ask me any clarifying questions. We will hold a public hearing. And following the close of the public hearing, the council, of course, can deliberate and reach a decision. I do want to note that for this public hearing, if the property owner is here and wishes to speak, we would want to give the property owner or their representative more than the traditional 3 minutes. So typically for land use appeals, that kind of thing, we do provide 10 minutes. So if the property owner is here and wants to speak, Mr. Mayor, I recommend that you ask how much time he or she will need. All right, next slide. All right, so this is a background about the project itself and why the city needs to acquire this property for the project. So, this area west of Railroad is, of course, a significant habitat area with coastal resources and scenic values. Acquiring the parcels in this area will not only provide for drainage control and that kind of thing, but will manage hazards and erosion and manage retreat of the coastal trail. And I'm going to have a slide in a few moments here that's really going to show that. Particularly for retreat of the coastal trail due to erosion of those bluffs. Furthermore, this project is going to help mitigate cumulative traffic impacts through the city's lot retirement program. And we'll kind of get into a little bit more about the city's lot retirement program And then finally, maintain public access and recreational opportunities in the west of Railroad PD area. And I do want to note before we move on that this is the project, and this is a project that's maybe a little different than a project to say build a structure or widen a road. I understand last time eminent domain was used in the city of Half Moon Bay was to widen Highway 82, and that was a Caltrans project implemented by the county. So that's a different type of building project. But this project, managing and retrieve the coastal trail, protecting coastal resources, managing hazards and erosion is, just as necessary a type of a public project, and is also authorized, for use of eminent domain, just like a road widening. All right, next slide. All right, so the city is implementing its lot retirement program as part of this project. And this is important not only because it's part of the project, but it's also a part of the funding. So the city is intending to purchase and retire lots in the west of Railroad PD area using funds that were paid for by the Alonto developer of the Pacific Ridge subdivision. So back in 2008, the Coastal Commission approved a coastal development permit for this project, subject to Alonto's payment of $2.835 million. Of those funds, approximately $2.6 million remains, and the city is required by the terms of that permit and also by the terms of the settlement agreement to acquire and retire lots in order to mitigate the cumulative traffic impacts of the Alonto project. So this money has actually been tied up for the most part since 2008, because one of the conditions of accessing those funds was that the city had to approve the final map for the Pacific Ridge project, which it did recently. So now the city is actually able to access those funds and use them for the required purpose of retiring those lots. I want to note that the city is planning to use those lot retirement funds, until they're depleted. And so this is simultaneously making inquiries and has sent notices of decision to appraise letters to owners of 5 other parcels in this west of Railroad area. Okay, next slide. All right, so in terms of the mechanics here, the city expressed its interest in acquiring these parcels by giving notice to the property owners of the city's decision to appraise the properties. And that notice is required by statute. And we also have to give the property owners an opportunity to accompany the appraiser on the site visit. The property owners declined to join the appraiser. The city has retained a certified MAI appraiser to appraise these properties using comparable sales and market data, and appraise the properties at $91,000 for all 6 of them. The city has made the full offer of the full appraised value to the property owners, as required also by law. The property owners declined that offer and did not provide any valuation data to support their asserted value for the properties. I do want to say that the city, of course, remains open to negotiate purchase of the property short of going fully to trial on this eminent domain case. The last step, I don't have a bullet point for it, but of course the city provided notice of this hearing as required by law via certified mail. I also emailed the notices to the property owner and their attorney representative. And if the owner appears today, they will obviously be able to make comment. If they don't appear today, they can still provide evidence of their value of the property in the eminent domain action. So they don't need to appear tonight. Though if they don't appear, then they would waive an argument about the city's right to take the property by eminent domain. All right, next slide. All right, so this map I think is very helpful in terms of not only, of course, describing the proposed acquisitions here, but just to give some overall context. So just to orient us, this of course is the outline of the west of Railroad planned development area, outlined in black. The 6 parcels that are owned by the Gearing family are also outlined in black. The yellow hatch mark is hatching is properties that are in public ownership or land trust ownership. So you'll see, that's a significant amount of land there surrounding that west of Railroad area, which is, of course, underlies, the project here and why the city has a need to acquire. And I'll just also point out that every single one of the Gearing parcels is adjacent to publicly owned or land trust land. A few other things to point out on this map. So the coastal trail is the green trail line on the west side. One of the purposes of this project is to manage retreat of that coastal trail. And so you'll see, well, it's actually a little bit hard to see the bluff, but I'm sure all of you have been out there to know that, that bluff is eroding and there is a need to retreat that coastal trail inland. Current projections in the city's most recent land use plan project that bluff edge is going to erode by up to 200 feet by 2200, which will actually bring the bluffs into the west of Railroad PD area. And so you'll see there's that need to retreat the trail inland there. I also want to point out the other green line on this is the conservation easement that is on city-owned parcels. The easement is owned by the Coastside Land Trust that runs, up north to Kelly Avenue, down south to Seymour Street. There are a few gaps. The gaps are areas that are not parcelized. So all of the parcels in that stretch are covered by a conservation easement that by its terms prohibits uses that are incompatible with passive recreational uses like biking and walking and other types of recreational open space uses. So it prohibits incompatible uses such as streets, infrastructure that would be incompatible and sort of development, that would be incompatible with those uses. I also just note that the city's bike ped plan, recently approved bike ped plan, does identify this CLT easement area as being a potential future class 1 shared bike trail that would extend from Kelly Avenue down south to Seymour and beyond to Smith Fields. All right. I'm actually just gonna pause there and just see if there are any questions on this map. Oh, and actually, I was just reminded, I think I might have misspoke about the bluff erosion. It's actually faster than what I said. I said 200 feet by 2200. It's actually 2100. So that's 80 years from now, much sooner than I had indicated earlier.
That's right. What I was going to ask clarification about. So
Thank you. I must have, maybe I read your mind.
I was wondering too. Any other questions for Catherine from council at this point? No questions. Okay, I would like to.
Well, let's actually go ahead.
Oh, sorry, more, sorry about that, Catherine.
Here. So let's next one. We're almost done with the staff presentation. And I also actually, I forgot to introduce my colleague, Andrew Schwartz, who is here on the webinar. He's a real estate and transactional public right-of-way and eminent domain expert. So if there are any questions that I can't answer, he's here to assist. All right, so the resolution itself, that's of course attached to your staff report, one of many attachments. It's attachment number 1, but it is important in terms of the 4 required findings that the council must make in order to pass the resolution. And I just want to recite them here because they're of course included in the resolution itself, but I want to highlight them. So first, that the public interest and necessity require the project. And those are what we discussed earlier in terms of the necessity to retreat the coastal trail, prevent hazards and erosion, etc. Second, the project is planned and located in the manner that will be most compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury. This I forgot to fail to mention earlier, but the entire west of Railroad area, PD area is vacant. There would be no displacement of homes as part of this acquisition, and there's no utilities in this area, and that supports this finding in terms of least private injury. Third, the property sought to be acquired is necessary for the project. And of course, we went through that in terms of the map and the location of the parcels. And then finally, that the offer required by the government code has been made to the owners of record. And those offers were attached to the staff report. What is not at issue, I will just say, is that the value of the property is not at issue in this proceeding, but rather it will be determined during the trial or by settlement. Any questions on this one? I'm seeing head shakes. Okay, so let's next slide, please. All right, so this is where we can actually pause. Actually, no, before we actually do the public hearing, I actually want to advance a couple slides just in terms of next steps. So we just have a roadmap for where we're going. Colleen, if you could just advance just a couple slides, there we go. So if this resolution passes, this resolution authorizes the city attorney to file an eminent domain action and also deposits the fair market value with the court as the amount of probable compensation based on the city's appraisal. And that will enable the city to seek an order granting immediate possession of the property. Those would be the next steps. Okay, so with that, I would take any clarifying questions, and if there are none, go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Any clarifying questions at this point? No. Okay. Let's move on to the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand.
First up, we have Michael Ferrara. Michael, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, City Council and staff, for bringing this matter forward. My name happens to be on the 2004 settlement agreement with Ilanto that put this in motion. I also would like to congratulate staff on the scholarship and the digging that must have been done to get the 666-page attachment to this item. There's a lot of good stuff there. I don't know how I'll ever get through it, but it's meaty stuff, great stuff. The great Peter Douglas was very much a factor in this settlement, and was very involved in the negotiations, rather directive with all of us as to how this would turn out. And so if he were still with us, I think he'd be very happy to see this moment. I do think that some kudos are due to Councilmember Ruddick, because in looking at that map and showing the railroad right-of-way, it was her efforts and lobbying and cajoling that led to the funding being available to make that purchase, and she deserves credit for it. I do have one question which probably can't be answered tonight. That's the gap in the conservation easement. When I was on the council, I said, why is that gap there if we own that? I never got a good answer. And maybe I'll find it in the 666 pages, but it's a good puzzlement as to why that gap exists. And there are two gaps. One is easily understood down by Poplar. That was in private ownership, McClellan. But the one that starts at Central never got an explanation as to why we couldn't execute that. So sorry, I realize you can't address that tonight, but I would like to just throw that out because I think it would be good for us to know. And if it's possible to remedy, that would be a good remedy. And again, thank you for all your great work and good luck in court.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Anyone else, Jessica?
I don't have any other hands raised at the moment. Oh, I do have one more. Hold on. Lenny Roberts, you have 3 minutes. Lenny, are you there?
Sorry, I had another button to push. Sorry. Good evening, Mayor Brownstone and council members and staff. I'm Lenny Roberts. I'm speaking for Green Foothills, and I would just like to heartily concur with Mike Ferreira's comments and congratulate the immense amount of research that has been put into the document that attaches to the staff report. It's been very interesting reading, and I just want to point out that for as long as we've been involved in the Half Moon Bay planning, which goes back to 1980, we have been aware of the importance of preserving this area because of its habitat and scenic value. And we are even more aware now that we know as much as we do about sea level rise and bluff retreat, shoreline retreat processes. So we really commend the city for taking this first step to acquire these parcels, and we look forward to your acquiring more. We're really excited that finally the mitigation funds from the Elanto project are being put to good use. So thank you very much, and we hope you all vote to move forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Any other hands, Jessica?
Not at the moment. If there's anyone else that would like to speak on this item, now is your opportunity. Okay, I think that concludes public comments, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll now close the public hearing and open up for council deliberations. Any thoughts, comments from council?
If I may just request that, Colleen, if you could just pull up that slide deck again, just on the recommendation slide, just so it's handy.
Great. And Harvey, you had your hand up.
Briefly, I think that west of Railroad PD is an immense asset for the city. I think the scenic value, the habitat preservation, and dealing with erosion in the future is really important. I think it's a sensible action that we're taking to acquire these properties. We don't want to see them built up. We want to keep them vacant and beautiful. So I'm entirely in favor of this action. Thank you.
Thanks, Harvey. Anybody else? Deborah, you're still muted, I think, Deborah.
Yeah, I would agree with Council Member Rarbach, and would like to also just thank staff for the thoroughness and completeness of the report. As lengthy as it was, it made all questions that I might have had unnecessary. It clarified the issue very, very well for me. And I know it took a lot of work, and I know it took a lot of time and effort. So thank you, staff. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Deborah. Anyone else? Teddy?
Yeah, I'd like to echo some of the comments from other council members. I think it's important for the public to know that the decision to move forward in this manner was not taken lightly. The use of eminent domain is a very serious affair, but it can be used to achieve public purposes. And I believe that our staff, both our attorneys and our community development staff, have met the test. The documents and the homework that they prepared are, as far as I can tell, thorough and on very solid ground, including the appraisal documents. As somebody who's engaged in public land transactions, I looked at this very closely and feel satisfied that our staff has met the requirements for the use of eminent domain. And I would just ask maybe our attorneys to just take a moment maybe and to explain, like a brief, not really a primer, but an explanation to the public about the uses of eminent domain, so that the public understands the intent here of the city. But I want to say, thank you to the attorneys and staff for the hard and very professional work that brought us here today. And it's an important moment. I know there will be concerns out there in the community, but the city is committed to answering your questions and being very, transparent as we move forward here. So I just want to say thanks again.
Thank you, Debbie. Joaquin.
Growing up in Half Moon Bay, there's one thing that we hear often about, and that is, protecting the coast. It's something among, our young generations. I remember since, my high school years, it was always talked about what it was to protect the coast, protects the scenic view that we have here in Half Moon Bay. And something that is taking this long, 16 years to happen. We actually, the city taking steps like this, to protect, our open spaces. I know it's something that a lot of us, including myself, really care about, protecting our open spaces, to make sure that Half Moon Bay stays, Half Moon Bay, where we can still enjoy, taking a walk or a bike ride, on the coastal trail, and not overdeveloping areas, that are protected. It's something that a lot of us look forward to. Protecting our open spaces, protecting our areas, protecting the coast. Even if it takes this long, it's something that we should be proud about. I strongly support this motion. It's something that we want to continue to do here in Half Moon Bay. We talk about development, of our community, but it has to be smart development. The needs of the community, and that's what we focus on. Protecting our beautiful coast. and things like this have to happen. So thank you for everything. Thank you for taking this step. 16 years later. So looking forward to many more steps like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Well, there's not much more I can add to everything that's been said. Fantastic staff work. Thank you to staff and our city attorneys for working a very complex process and making sure we covered every piece, which is terrific. And frankly, I think, there have been a lot of pieces, just to comment to Joaquin's point, this particular piece may have taken a while, but I think we've been working for quite a long time on protecting aspects of the coast, whether it's LCP development. And I know a lot of history I learned a lot of history over the last few years. And I think people have been pretty active in a number of pieces. Sometimes they're just not as known. And I really thought it was great when Mike specifically recognized you, Debbie, for insisting on those mitigation funds, which you now is, to help make a vision reach fruition now. It took a long time, but getting those funds in place is an important piece. So a lot of these pieces have been worked on over time, and I think it's great. It gives us a lot of possibilities to continue our strategies for protecting the coast. Before we go on, Debbie mentioned, Catherine, I don't know if you would, take a moment and just give a little bit of a explanation to the public about, that interesting balance between, property rights and eminent domain and the considerations.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start us off, and Andrew, please feel free to fill in the gaps here. Eminent domain can be used by the public agency for public purposes, and that can range from, like I mentioned, widening a road to acquiring property for open space. And that's, of course, one of the things that the city's doing here. Not only that, but managing hazards and potential for erosion and retreating the coastal trail. So those are all valid public purposes that enable the city to use the power of eminent domain. And then I'll also say, and I mentioned this in my presentation, but reiterating, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not closing ourselves off to negotiating with the property owner. And many eminent domain cases are settled before trial. So that's, of course, also a possibility. Andrew, is there anything I want to fill in here?
Well, I think the Vice Mayor made a good point that eminent domain is almost always a last resort. The staff have made every effort to try to reach an agreement with the property owner to buy the property by voluntary purchase. And that the law provides abundant protections for property owners in the eminent domain process. The Constitution of the state of California requires that a property owner receive just compensation for their property. That means the fair market value. And that means that the property owner will be made whole. They will receive from the court what they would have received if they put the property up for sale on the open market. So they will be made whole. It's not as if the city is taking this property without paying for it. And I think that's an important concept for the public to understand, that sometimes eminent domain is necessary for the greater public good, but that the property owner is put in as good a position as they would have been had they kept the property.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, with that, I think I can ask for a motion here. Before someone makes the motion, I was just wondering, Catherine, were there two parts of this motion? The piece that I see up here, and then I saw
yes, the
authorizing the city
part in terms of authorizing the deposit probable compensation. That's actually included in the resolution language. So this is sufficient to adopt the resolution.
I just want to make sure whoever wants to make the motion. Could I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt by a 4/5 vote a resolution authorizing an eminent domain action to acquire the real property owned by Thomas J. Gearing, San Mateo County APNs 056096240, 056096480, 056127030, 056127040, and 056128090, and Daniel K. Gearing, San Mateo County APN 056125210, located in the west of Railroad PD area.
Second.
Okay, well, we have 2 seconds, but I think I heard Harvey first. Thanks, Deborah. Also, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks again to staff and city attorneys. And thank you for joining us, Andrew. Really appreciate that. Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, take care. We will move on to resolutions and staff reports. First item is item 3A. We will have our mid-year review and adoption of a resolution to amend the fiscal year 2020-21 budget. And I believe we again will start with a staff report. Take it away, Kenneth.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. So this is the mid-year review. This is pretty much the identical presentation that was presented to the Finance Committee back in April, here tonight for council approval. It's a short presentation, small agenda, talking about revenues and those adjustments, expenditure adjustments, CIP, and then finally the financial outlook going forward. As council is aware, these are our major revenues: transient occupancy tax, also known as TOT, property taxes, and sales and use taxes. This table is detailing out what we approved, what we received, and what we estimate going forward. That first line, TOT, we think we're going to end up at $3.7 million for the year. This is a $1.4 million increase. Do you remember we went very conservative in that number? So it's not too much of a surprise that we are doing much better than what we had planned. Property taxes are about in line with what we planned for, but we're thinking we're going to receive about $155,000 more there. And for sales taxes, similar to TOT, we think we're going to receive about $400,000 more than what we initially planned. So from our major revenues, we estimate we probably receive about $2 million more. There's also other adjustments that we're recommending. The sum of all those other small items is a net decrease of $266,000. Most of that coming from our Parks and Rec department having enough classes and programming as we had hoped for. Overall, our total revenue adjustment will be $1.7 million, and that is for the general fund. On the expenditure side, staff's biggest recommendation is to reimburse the pension and risk management funds. Those reserve funds, as you can remember, we used those reserve funds to pay off those operational expenses. We want to reimburse those funds. That would be about $1.5 million. Operationally, for our departments, our day-to-day expenses, we're asking for $140,000. With the bulk coming from IT and from community services, which is grant funding that council just recently approved. Overall, our total operating adjustments are $1.6 million. For CIP, we have a handful list of CIP projects that we want to amend. In the parentheses is the increase amount. The biggest being the sheriff substation renovation project at 225. And then we also want to call out 2 new projects that we want to start work on, the Key Hill project and the Roosevelt ditch, excuse me. With that, total CIP adjustments will be about 579,000. Table the council public is familiar as our balance structure. As you can see in the second column in our adopted budget, these are the numbers that we had planned for back in June. It was much more murkier waters back then. At the bottom, we thought we would have unassigned balance about 400,000. In that last column, assuming that everything gets approved tonight, our revenues will go up by about 2 million. Our expenditures will go up by about 2 million, and our fund balance will increase, leaving us with an unassigned fund balance of 1.8 million. And we're now recommending to assign that leftover 1.8 and program it into the next season. If there's any, I'll take any questions if there are any. The recommendation is as follows: adopt the attached resolution to amend the fiscal year 2020-2021 operating and capital budget.
Any clarifying questions from council?
I felt like I had my questions answered, in preparation for the meeting.
Okay, anyone else? Kenneth, as usual, thank you for an incredibly clear presentation of our budget so everyone can understand. The public really appreciate it. We now have any questions from the public?
I don't have any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. Then I would like to entertain a motion. Somebody? Come on, step right up. Everyone gets a chance at this game. Come on. Who would like to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the attached resolution to amend the 2020-21 fiscal year operating and capital budget.
Thank you. And can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Terrific. Thank you, everybody. We will move on to...
Could we take a 5-minute break, please?
Sure. That would be great. How about we take a 5-minute break? It's 8:15, so at 8:20. Great. Okay, everyone. 5-minute break. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Are we on? We're still recording, right? Okay, good. All right. Well, we will be moving on to our final resolution of the evening, item 3B, which is our spring and summer beach action plan. And again, I believe we'll begin with a staff report.
Last but not least, remember that.
Last but not least.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, John Dowdy, Public Works. Along with me tonight for answering questions will be Saul Lopez and Matthew Chittister. And without any further ado, I'll run through this. There are quite a few slides, but I promise you, I'm going to whip through them pretty quickly. I think this is, for most folks, is a rehash of a lot of things we already know. But anyway, but I'll promise to be as short as I can. So again, from a background perspective, this is the third year of really a plotted and written action plan regarding the beaches, particularly in 19 and 2020. We were really talking about Poplar Beach, but it really it rolled into kind of other beach response as well. Obviously, COVID-19 affected what we did, and certainly ways that we never anticipated. I looked at the record, and we actually took action to approve the last year's action plan on the day we were heading into lockdown, March 17th. So basically a year to the day that we're doing this again. And then reminder, last year we were also talking about parking, traffic, restroom issues, and a lot of other things. And this plan tries to capture some of those issues and touch on those and remind us of where we've come since that point. I don't have to linger on this one. What I can say really is that we met with state parks. We've talked to other people and with county parks representative yesterday. There is consensus among at least that group that we think 2021 visitation is likely to increase over last year's visitation, with obviously vaccines coming on board. People pent up and who were abiding by stay-at-home order are frustrated, tired, want to get out, who may not wish to go out of state or beyond the region, and also looking at more people coming into the state from outside of the region or outside of the state, frankly, that are visiting. So that's, I don't have a full crystal ball, but that is the consensus that we think we're going to probably see it equal to or greater than last year's. This is a review of the action plan. You'll note we added 2 bullet points over kind of last year's conversation, which was traffic and the restrooms. And frankly, litter management used to be under really maintenance, and we broke it out separately as well. So this plan is sort of taking new life post-COVID or during COVID. And from what we've learned a lot, and what we've also heard a lot from the community. So I'm not going to read each one of these slides. It's in your staff report. It's in the packet. It's all of there. I think the biggest takeaway on this one is trying to deal with the upcoming season of graduations, and we believe that the kids have been pent up, are going to likely come out as they have in the past, and we think even maybe more this year because of the issues of COVID. So we'll be reaching out to Nancy McGee, and I apologize on the staff report for the misspelling of her name. I went to go and fix that, and I didn't get to it, and I apologize to Nancy and to all. But that's something we're going to reach out and ask that she reach out to all the schools in the San Mateo area to remind them, and also Cabrillo Unified. And then also that we're going to carry on with a lot of the COVID related communication and outreach that we took on last year to try to carry over into just the beach issues, traffic, parking, all of those things. From the traffic perspective, Nothing really new here. This is what California Highway Patrol, what also our folks at state parks also do enforcement, and they're going to help us. They've committed to as much as they can to assist with this. We will be using the signage, the VMS signage. We will try to deal with the 511 signs on the other side of the hill to alert people of major issues, try to divert them to other alternative routes and the like. And then we'll also use what we can use, SMC alert. And those are kind of the main pieces that we're looking at from the traffic side. And then within Public Works, we will continue to try to get Google and the app-based routing systems and apps to try to address some of these issues. Not an easy task, but we will attempt to, and we'll again continue to work with Chamber and our communications to get information out, particularly to identify that there are beaches beyond the city limits of Half Moon Bay, and we hope that they'll maybe choose to extend beyond their trip beyond those, and some great places south and north that get folks out of the crush of Half Moon Bay at times. From an enforcement, again, this is nothing significantly changed from last year, other than really taking what we learned and what we did with the COVID year to the next level. We're also happy that the Sheriff's Department has their own Polaris coming online there. They borrowed one last year to help with the beach patrols. We also have the Public Works one as well, and we can assist in getting down the trails, and we can get out and deal with our maintenance issues, even on the most sticky weekends where a vehicle really can't get on the road and move quickly, and dealing with that. One of the things that I know Bob is excited about, Matthew, and we all are, but it's something that Bob has been working with, is trying to create a beach or a bike patrol for our portion of the coastal trail, with hopes that that can ultimately expand beyond that point. And this would be similar to and take off from the ski patrol group as a bike patrol. And that's an exciting new addition to the work this year in the spring and summer, hopefully. Again, we are going to keep the Poplar Gate open. And again, there's the volunteer bike patrol that we're looking at for the coast side. And again, it'll be limited right now to primarily the area along Poplar, but with hope we can get that extended and their services extended beyond that point. With enforcement on the holidays, unfortunately, Independence Day falls on Sunday, which means Monday is the holiday. So we have three 3-day weekends again, just like last year. And so we're going to be working to just make sure we're covered with those in the sheriff's office as per their agreement, and what has been done in the past. We're providing additional patrol and deputies for those weekends, and we'll deal with all of the things that go along with that, including the PSAs and signage and all the things, particularly when we get to Independence Day and fireworks. So we'll work through that. From the maintenance perspective, thank you for your consideration of many of the items for the mid-year budget. We greatly appreciate that, and particularly with the capital, but not only that, which was you approved with the mid-year budget, the hiring of a seasonal maintenance worker. And that seasonal maintenance worker would come in and work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the beaches, obviously focused on Poplar, but extend beyond that at times, and deal with trash, deal with just overall maintenance, keeping track of what was going on, getting the sheriff's office out there if there's an issue, obviously to some extent being an ambassador out there, and somebody will be there every day, all day on those heavy use days, which means that we, one, will have other staff available to do other things during the week, but also we can supplement that on particularly Thursday and Friday if we have heavy times with our regular staff. So very exciting times for that. And again, we will continue to work through things such as replacing our dangerous surf signs at Poplar, Surfers, and Miramontes. We had a great conversation yesterday with State Parks. They're going to get us their signage, and we're going to try to get consistent signage down along the entire coast of Half Moon Bay. So all of these kinds of signs for the dangerous surf and such will be similar and consistent. And coastside restrooms, we talked about this last October, basically, and you'll see following that are the maps that show them. I don't want to go into detail, but there are quite a few operable restrooms. We found out yesterday that the inoperable restrooms at Venice are actually going to be repaired and made operable with a grant the state parks received. Those will be only available next year, though. They won't be available this year. But they every year replace those with portable toilets, so they do address some of those issues. And also we are looking at adding a couple of different locations for portables, including one at the terminus of Kelly Avenue to catch the folks coming to and fro both the state park and the coastal trail, Poplar, and heading to parking in those areas. The other place we're proposing to add and do a trial run this year is at the terminus of Wave and Pilarcitos, in that area where it's everybody parks in the neighborhood there, the Kehoe neighborhood, and the shortcuts over to Venice. And we know that that has been a consistent theme of emails and things about trash, diapers, people doing things they shouldn't be doing. So we'd like to pilot those this year and see how it goes in those kind of in those different locations beyond that point. And then and these are in your packet, so I won't go over them. So litter management, our staff has been working hard. We've been working closely with Republic on this. We'll again put out our signage. We'll deal with these things. We're going to put the receptacles out. We're just trying everything that we can do. We're looking at, again, putting out the third large dumpster out at Poplar to capture. And as the plan calls out, if we need to, on the heavy weekends, we'll bring the dump truck in, back it in, and let folks throw it into that. And we can actually move that in and out and dump during the day if we're overloading all the things and dealing with that. And we'll look at also putting trash litter disposal at the Pilarcitos and Wave location as well. And then we are also going to just continue to work with Republic Services. I need to point out that in the action plan, it kind of indicated, or in the staff report, it kind of indicated that the Republic might not be cooperating with us. That's not what I was intending on that. The lids that we're looking for are special order, and they're trying to get them, and I just can't, and they cannot guarantee that they can get them, but they are working diligently to get those lids, and I believe that they will get them, and they believe they will get them. But I just wanted to be clear that those are special orders and not out of their normal deal, and that's how committed they are to helping us make this year work and move forward. And then obviously your Coastal Clean team with working with Eric and Abundant Grace do a great job and go beyond the beach, but they take care of the beach, but they go beyond those areas where neighborhoods are affected by a lot of the beach goers. So that will continue, and the summer expanded service will continue. And also there's always a spillover into downtown, it seems. So we're also going to be looking at the additional roll carts and things down in downtown, as well as we did last year, where we were kind of overrun also with a lot of the to-go containers and things. We'll see if that eases a bit now with more occupancy allowed and eating indoors. But let's plan for the worst and hope for the best. And then some things that we're really excited about is that we have one of the Girl Scout troops has reached out to us, and we're talking about sort of developing a goby for the plastic bottle collection. And this is a really cool one. We've looked at different sites, but we're kind of focused on, again, the terminus of Kelly Avenue right down there, very visible spot, a lot of traffic through there and up on the bluff area. But we're trying to match them with a good nonprofit to help them. We're going to certainly help them. We'll talk to Abundant Grace about helping with unloading, if we get this far, but we're really excited about this one. Is just one of the things. And then Republic has also agreed to wrap the dumpsters at Poplar and this year, and they'll do that. And that should be at least a little more attractive. And what we're hoping to run is a dumpster art contest. I know that kind of sounds bad in some ways there. We need to change the name of that, but that's communications role, not mine. But we're looking at during the year or as part of Earth Day to actually do design for the wraps and allow the winner theirs to be on the dumpster for a year, whatever, and then we roll it again. We expect the wraps to last about a year. So the conclusions, again, we think that, the COVID-19 isn't fully, gone, and it's going to be there. So we're going to have to deal with it. And we're going to continue to work with our partners throughout this time. I think yesterday's meeting that Bob got together was exceptional in starting the process, and they've all of those partners have agreed to meet with us regularly during the spring and summer to work with that. We're going to have to remain very flexible to be able to respond. This action plan will never cover every situation and every circumstance that we could think of and deal with, but it gives us a roadmap to start that process and kind of deal with it. But we've got to be flexible and move and adapt as things happen. As I said before, we think that the beach visitation could be more than last year, or at least equal to. And must I say this, but I must, traffic and parking issues will be present no matter what planning we do and enforcement we do. They're going to be there, and we just ask that people, this community, embrace that reality and try to work and be nice and as open as they can to those visitors and guests who want to enjoy the things that we get to enjoy every day here. So we hope we can instill that in our community. Finally, our request is that you approve this 2021 Beach Action Plan and allow us to go ahead and start to implement that. And with that, I'll conclude and say that I'm certainly available for any questions. Saul's here, and Matthew are here to answer questions as you may have as well.
Thanks so much, John. Any clarifying questions from council before we move on to public forum on this?
I see Deborah.
Yep, I saw Deborah. Deborah, no?
No, these are not clarifying questions, so I'll wait for public forum.
Okay, great. Everyone else? Anyone else? Okay. We can now open up the conversation for public comments.
Thank you. First, we have Rick Hernandez. Rick, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, City Council members. Thank you, City staff. Thank you, John Dowdy, for the wonderful presentation. It's been a trying year. I'm Rick Hernandez. I am a planning commissioner in Half Moon Bay, but I am speaking on my own behalf. I want to applaud what the city has done over the last year with respect to cleaning up Poplar Beach and our beaches in general. The Coastal Clean Team, Abundant Hope, city staff, Republic Services have really done a tremendous job improving the overall quality of the beach. The steps that have been added in the last 12 months are also fantastic. They improve access, and I think they may be contributing to some of the visitors who come to visit Half Moon Bay and in particular our beach. I love the idea of the dumpster art, love the idea of Gobi. I love the creativity that everybody's putting into this effort and applaud it. As a community member, however, I want to point out the obvious. For those of you who live in Half Moon Bay, in particular who live in Arleta Park or near Poplar Beach, the garbage cans have been removed from the paths. They've been missing for 9 months. This makes people who are inconvenienced, who don't want to walk over to the dumpster, leave garbage in all kinds of gross places. People who are thoughtful enough to pick up their dog poop, leave it on the trail because garbage cans aren't conveniently located. This leads to city staff and the Coastal Clean team having to do extra work to pick up this refuse that's lying around. And they're doing that work, but I don't think everybody here appreciates that. The garbage cans really should be restored or some other solution. I understand the garbage cans get overfilled, stuff's piled up around them. That's a problem unto itself, but we need some kind of solution along the paths that makes it more convenient for people to collect trash. Please, please, please address this. Second thing is, I love the idea of the Polaris. If they're electric, that's great. As the city, we have an obligation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, so please use electric vehicles or consider having the horses. The mounted sheriffs are awesome. People don't like to mess around with a mounted sheriff. It's pretty scary, but it's also, it's a good presence, and I think it makes it easier for folks to get around, and also has a lower greenhouse gas emission from a city's perspective. And then finally, you know, I think it's really important that you take a serious look at those automated pay station, at least the one on Poplar Beach. It is the worst user interface I have ever seen. And I design user interfaces for a living, and I buy those systems from lots and lots of people. It is terrible. You see lines of people waiting for an hour in some cases just to get to the beach because that pay station is so terrible. I've seen 20 people lined up there, and nobody knows how to use it. Nobody knows how to download the app because there's no Wi-Fi or no wireless signal at the beach. So please take a look at that if you can. It makes everybody's experience less ideal when they visit Half Moon Bay, and we are dependent on tourist dollars. So thank you for trying to make everything better. Thank you for the improvements you've already done. Please lean in a little bit more so that when people come to Half Moon Bay, they have a superlative experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Next person.
Next, we have Kimberly Williams. Kimberly, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Kimberly Williams, and I represent San Mateo County chapter of Surfrider Foundation. I just want to remind the City Council and the staff that Surfrider locally also conducts beach cleanups at Poplar. We usually do one about once every month, sometimes once every other month, depending on who else is doing cleanups there. And we're happy to collaborate or to coordinate so that we can cover as much of that as possible without overlapping. And also to say with the art project, I think you said that you might need some help with that. Surfrider would be happy to have volunteers come help with that project. I think that was the Goby Fish, if you need volunteers to help relocate that or do whatever you're going to do with it. And then thirdly, Surfrider is happy to amplify the city's messages on litter and beach cleanups and any helpful thing that we can do during the summer at strategic times to be helpful with all of those things. So we're happy to reach out to you, and please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, and thank you so much for the offers of assistance and working with us from Surfriders. Greatly appreciated. We will be in contact. Thanks.
And next we have Sarah Polgar. Sarah, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much. I actually did not realize that Rick would also be speaking. So I'm Sarah Polgar. I am a planning commissioner, but I am speaking today as a resident. And so first of all, I too wanted to thank staff and the council for putting together this plan. I'm really pleased by how comprehensive it is. I have a couple of comments. One is, well, and I would like to echo Rick's comment about the pay station at Poplar. I feel like it's a really poor, it's horrible. So I do see people waiting for a really long time out there. So that's something that would be very good to fix very soon. But my comments are actually about Redondo Beach. So in the maps and in the presentation of the staff report, there was nothing about Redondo Beach. And I think, you know, in 2020, basically I think in the past it wasn't so well known, but the secret is definitely out. And so there's just been a dramatic increase in the parking and beach access from Redondo, the end of Redondo Beach Road. And so you're seeing a lot of new trails down through the bluffs to the beach, and it's eroding a lot more rapidly, a lot more trash. And it's a little bit like the Wild West out there right now. You know, there's powered paragliders that are taking off from there. They're extremely loud and really disruptive. There's lots of drones. There's the ongoing issues that have always been going on there of like the, you know, presumably professional dog walkers showing up with 15, 20 dogs. But it's just getting, it's compounded by just a lot more use. So I think that it would be good to, I think that it can't be ignored. The comment, John, your comment about how you think that it's likely that it's only going to increase this year, the usage of all of our beaches. I think that's true. And I think that Redondo Beach is definitely going to see more use. It's definitely well known now. And I guess the other thing I would point, I mean, it's unfortunate because I know there are plans in the works to have, you know, real parking and have the coastal trail finished out through there. That's not happened yet, obviously. So that it's not an area that is equipped to deal with the use that it's getting. So I just would encourage, though, you to consider how you want to deal with it, because at the rate it's going to be a lot of damage to the environment. It's really unsafe. That's another thing, is that the access down to the beach that people are taking, it's pretty terrifying to watch people go down. Yeah, I would just encourage you to add this into your consideration, come up with a plan of how, you know, I think there needs to be a lot more patrolling out there, et cetera, something to deal with that. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my comments.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. I think that's it for the public comments. Is there any more, Jessica?
No, I don't have any other hands raised.
Okay, so we will now close the public forum. And
Mayor, could I guess, respond to a few things?
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't we give a chance for staff to respond to some of the comments we just heard? That'd be great.
Thanks, and I really appreciate the comments that we received. I every time I'm out there, I see at least one of those two out there roaming around, and any number of people out who are local folks. So it's nice to hear them and see their interest in this. That being said, the machine, gosh, I wish we hadn't made, such an investment in that machine. Obviously, that was the same brand, same company that we had before, which did not seem to have the interface concerns and issues that this one has. I guess upgrading doesn't always mean that it's really an upgrade. I think that we've added some notations with a labeler out there. One of the things I noted last week when I was out there is that you couldn't find the difference between where to toggle for English and Spanish, and that's been an issue. So we marked that. It's not very user-friendly. It's like a little flag thing. There's some other things with that. The other thing is that they have been beta working the app. I know I think you've heard this for a while, but they're actually working with that, and Lisa's been testing that. We hope and plan for this to go online next week is what the plan is. They were telling us it'd be about 2 weeks of testing, and we're in week 1.5 of that. So we're hoping for that. And what we want to do with communications is get the information out about loading the app before you get there, particularly, so you don't try to obviously download on your phone service, which sometimes is sporadic. And yes, sometimes the app may be a little sporadic, although the sheriff's office uses the same app to access for their enforcement. So there are ways to deal with that, and I think it will help things get there. I think there's also an issue of just when people arrive and how, there is sometimes a mass arrival at certain times of the day. But yes, I think we're going to have to look at the machine, and potentially we've talked about even adding a second machine and as a possibility, and we'll go from there. So trust me, when I say I understand, and I get the yelling through every email and many things from people frustrated with it. With regard to the cans, I appreciate Rick's comments on that. We had cans around and nearby and around and adjacent to the Poplar parking lot. What we found in those areas, those smaller cans, we continue to have people just tossing the stuff wherever. Those cans couldn't handle the larger products such as the beer cases, the big boxes and things of that nature. And we just had everything everywhere. And that's why we basically transitioned last year to the large dumpsters, in which you really couldn't mistake having access to that. You have to walk right by them no matter where you are and hopefully deal with it. The smaller cans take a lot of effort from our part, and they can't be maintained every portion of the day. And I know you as council members in particular, and the city manager, and I get a lot of emails from people with pictures showing us those smaller cans with all the stuff piled up around them, and what the hell are you doing? So this is a constant issue between how we balance this out. We're open to trying and looking at some of the smaller cans within, a reasonable proximity, but the wind, the birds, the people's behavior does not make that an easy task. And again, as we talked about, we want to be flexible and remain flexible throughout the process and going with that. And finally, with regard to Redondo, I passed along an email just today to Joe at Coastside Land Trust, letting her know that we had another resident who was concerned about Redondo. And I need to point out that Redondo and the property and the parking lot up there are Coastside Land Trust. They are not the cities. They are not technically a public parking lot, although they are access to the coast and the beach technically. And the city agrees that access going down there is extremely dangerous. And frankly, I wish Coastside Land Trust would consider actually removing that. And then I think there would be an issue with the Coastal Commission if we did that, even though it's an extremely dangerous thing. Now, I think most people are aware that Coastside Land Trust is also working toward getting a improved access to the beach and a safe way down to the beach, and also extending the Coastside Trail, California Coastal Trail, in the property there between their trail and Redondo Beach. So they're working toward making these improvements, and perhaps they can look at some interim work or addressing the issue of some of those safety concerns. But at this point, we're happy to work with them, and we have for years provided the dumpster there and provided that at no cost to them to address the issues of dumping and litter in that area. So the city has been a participant. Obviously, we maintain the coastal trail extension that goes into the Ritz-Carlton community in Ocean Colony, but that really is not within our area of control or management. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other responses from staff? I think that covered most of the comments that just came up from the public. So let's move on to City Council. Any questions, comments, Deborah?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to commend staff for the entire action plan. It is very sad that we cannot control the traffic, but I think looking at that in the face is critical. We do not own the roads. We do not own the beaches except Poplar Beach. We have very little control over how many people come to Half Moon Bay. In fact, we have no control. and it is going to get worse. So what we have to do is look at the things that we can do something about. And I think increasing the signage, the care that's been put into getting the correct kind of trash receptacles and dumpsters and lids, all of that has been critical and is going to be very, very helpful. I'm wondering about signage on the beaches themselves about trash. I didn't see anything in the action plan. Maybe I missed it, but I'm hoping that there will be signage on the beaches themselves. That's where people, when they're leaving, have to be asked to take it with them, to pack it out. But the thing that I want to suggest tonight is that we do have control, some control over cleaning up the mess that people leave behind. And we've been very blessed to have a wonderful maintenance staff. We are adding maintenance workers. We have Abundant Grace doing a great job. Surf Riders doing some job too. I would like to see us increase our budget for Abundant Grace by 50%. I think that if we could handle another 50% worth of workers, that's something like $40,000. It would make a huge difference. I've spoken with Eric DeBode about it, and he said that he thinks he could get that number of workers and that would probably be the cost for it, somewhere around $40,000. So I'd like us to look at that because that is something we do have some control over. There's a lot we don't, but we do have some control over that. So that's my ask for tonight. And I'd like the council to think about that and hear what you have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. And I could tell you that other council members have brought up that exact same suggestion. So I think we do have support for that. So thanks. Joaquin, please.
Well, I like the beach. I try to go to the beach as much as possible, you know. There's a few things that were brought up about the garbage cans. Also, you know, there's a few other things I would like to see on the trail, next to the garbage cans. You know, thinking about, you know, the future and things, you know, that we like to do, like see the families doing, you know, taking, you know, walks, you know, later in the evening. So I've been thinking about, you know, adding some lights, you know, between Poplar and Kelly, you know, some solar lights. Thinking about adding maybe a bicycle repair, you know, station, you know, close to Kelly Avenue. There's a lot of people that ride their bicycles, you know, on the trail that could use that. So now just, you know, just thinking about things I like to do around Half Moon Bay, you know, riding my bike, you know, walking, enjoying the beach. You know, of course, you know, want to see, you know, clean area. Another thing is, you know, about Half Moon Bay, you know, especially right now, I see a lot of people wanting to help. You know, doing the work that I do, we hear a lot about, you know, our high school students, you know, wanting to help, you know, doing community service. You know, we have Abundant Grace, you know, they're doing a great job, you know, the city employees doing a great job maintaining the beach, the trails. But I also hear about a lot of the, you know, other groups in the community that want to help. You know, maybe extending that, you know, that invitation to, you know, to high school students to do their community service, to do their community hours, and that will be to patrol the beach, you know, our beach cleanup. I know in the past, other schools, other programs from the county would come to the coast and actually help, you know, clean up the beach. I remember, you know, schools from East Palo Alto, San Mateo, Redwood City, will come to the beach, will come to Afon Bay and do their community service. They're so implementing programs like that, with their own students. I know a lot of our students right now, middle school, maybe as young as elementary school, are trying to keep our community clean. There's groups of parents that could actually do morning cleanups, Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, to go to the beach before they get crowded, and do cleanup. So those something to think about. I like the idea about the mounted police, at the beach. Even if it's on, riding their bicycles, I'd like to see more officers, on the trails. Yes, making sure everybody's safe. Yes, things to think about. But maintaining the beach. The garbage cans. It's something that we do need. I've seen those photographs. What John was talking about. They get posted on social media about the garbage cans being overflowing with garbage, with everything you can think of. It's right next to the small garbage can. So I would like to do that. Make an invitation. To community groups, community organizations, to or students, to our school district, to invite their students to do their community service, maintaining, our beach clean. So it's something to think about, but in the future, I would like to see some lighting between Poplar and Kelly, taking a stroll in the evening after the sun sets, gets a little bit dark sometimes. So I'm sure a lot of families would like to do that, for safety, adding lights, and of course, the bicycle repair, station will be a great addition to our community. And thank you for the report. A great report. It's true about traffic. There's not much we can do about traffic. Traffic is going to be here. Maybe a few things could change later. Some applications rerouting traffic out, down south to 84 San Gregorio, to connect, Highway 1 to 280. So yes, a few things, but that's as Half Bay. So we will welcome our visitors. And we're gonna be getting them now that the beach is gonna be open. We get our vaccines, it still maintain safety, and thank you for that great report.
All right, Harvey.
I'd like to commend Bob and city staff for cooperating, reaching out to state parks. I think that's a really important step. We're going to need to get people realizing that they can park further north. The signage should be commensurate with each beach. It's just the beginning of what makes a lot of sense, because we really, from a public perspective, we have one long beach. People don't really know whether Poplar is city beach or state beach. So I think this is the beginning of a sensible way that we can institute a single set of policies for the whole coast side. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry. Let's see, Debbie.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with the comprehensive approach that staff, and diligent too. They've been working on this ever since the end of the last season. There's a lot of good stuff here, and I think it's a very rational and reasonable plan. I don't see that anyone could really dispute that. I think maybe it's just like, what could we do, maybe on top of that? And we've heard some good ideas tonight. I really love the idea of the bike repair station. Maybe right down there near the restroom at the end of Kelly. I think that's a really great idea. I'd like to see us like the idea of community service for youth. but I would actually think of more like a summer jobs program. You know, picking up the trash, maybe not just picking up trash, but maybe like a community ambassador program. And, you know, give them a vest, just like we do for Abundant Grace. And, you know, walk the trails, go down on the beach, talk to people. I'd like to see us offer coupons for our local businesses for people who bring up their trash. So there's a table, you know, in the parking lot, and people are done with the beach. They bring their trash. They get a coupon to, you know, a local restaurant or store or something like that. There's nothing like, you know, financial incentives to get people to change their behavior, unfortunately. But I think like a coupon program would be a good idea. And then paying our youth for actually doing this sort of work as well. I'm not sold on the idea of restoring the individual garbage cans along the trail. I've seen them myself, and they become an instant nuisance, you know, almost right away, early in the day. And it does blow around. It's just, I'm not sold on the idea, Rick. Sorry. But I do think that, you know, working with the dumpsters and trying to make them as aesthetic as possible with lids that actually work is a great idea. One thing I'd like to see us do is I've been really kind of concerned about the amount of access across the bluffs from Railroad Avenue, especially. It seems like there's new trails being, you know, cut through there all the time. In the summer, you know, people are coming from all over the neighborhood and just, you know, cutting right through Spruce Street, Filbert Street, Central Avenue, what have you. And there's lots of problems with that. You know, a lot of people walking out there compresses the soil, you know, exacerbates the runoff, kills whatever plants are there. And because the soil's compressed, new plants can't grow. I just think there's too much access out there. I'd like to see us actually close off the vast majority of those informal accesses across the bluffs and try to get, you know, some, at least probably can't do restoration until there's money to do restoration, but at least minimize the impact. You know, make people walk down to one or two access ways to get on the trail rather than just crisscrossing every which way. I think that's bad. I know the residents who live, you know, in the neighborhoods are not going to like seeing all that informal access blocked off, but I think we have to do it, you know, for the environment and all the collateral damage that accompanies, you know, all that public usage. I love the ideas of the additional restrooms. I think that's really important. The Redondo Beach thing is a problem. I walk out there a lot during the summer and days and weekends, and the line of cars out Redondo Beach Road is awesome. Yeah, it's really remarkable. And you know, there's not a lot of amenities out there to sort of mitigate impacts. You know, I mean, they're just beating it down, and the access is dangerous. And I think it's incumbent on us to try to help along the project that CLT has in mind to try to manage that access. I think that's the answer in the long term. What else? I don't know. You guys pretty much have tackled all the subjects pretty well, and thanks to Saul for spending time on this as well. You know, it's good work, and it is a work in progress. We're going to learn more this season that we can incorporate for next season. I think we're on a great path with state parks in collaboration. And, you know, we have a city manager who's spent, you know, a good deal of his professional career sort of in those sorts of partnerships. So we're really, you know, lucky to have Bob in that position. So good work on that too. So just, you know, some more ideas to consider. But I think, you know, I really love the ideas from the council members, and I'm really pleased to see the public care the way they do, you know, for our beach environment. It's really gratifying. Oh, and I forgot the surf riders. let's engage them. However much they want to put into it, I think it's great to have them involved. On top of the work of the, Pacific Beach Coalition, I want to, keep them as partners as well, just because they're so good at organizing volunteers for one. And I don't think we've seen what they can actually do yet here in Half Moon Bay. So I want to keep them on tap as well. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Debbie. Great comments. Let's see, I have a couple of questions. And by the way, I really love the depth and minutia of all these things that staff put together. I mean, it's just a fantastic checklist for us to, be constantly thinking about and updating. So I'm going to work backwards, ask comments first. And I was just thinking, Debbie, when you mentioned cutting off access to the informal trails, but then people in those neighborhoods might be upset about that. Maybe there's some sort of middle ground where we cut off the access during high season, where things most get trampled, and then there's a way to then reopen it. So some temporary ways to cut it off, but just a thought off the top of my head. Joaquin, in terms of a suggestion to get more students involved in some of the cleanup activities, there are, there's not one weekend once the weather is nice where there's not like multiple beach cleanups going on, all up and down the coast. And maybe it's a social media fix in terms of, getting those kind of announcements of what's available, out to, the high school students and organizations who might not be aware of it, especially if they're not, well, the ones on the coast definitely wouldn't be aware of it, but even, students on the coast, and get it done through students, teachers, whatever we think is the right social media. Because those usually are early in the morning before it gets crowded, all those cleanups, right? So, and you're right, always looking for, well, the kids are always looking for that extra service credit, so it's a perfect lineup there. And I was thinking also in terms of when you're talking about the lights, the solar lights and the bicycle repair stations, we can also check in with some of the fraternal organizations, like Rotary Club Oddfellows, and see if they might want to sponsor something like that, if the city, they have their name on it. It's great public service, so they might be interested in addition to the city. A couple of quick questions about Venice. And I don't know, John or Bob, you would know. I remember last year there were questions about whether the Venice parking lots were even open, right, at some points. And then later on, they did seem to open them up. So do we have a better sense that the Venice parking lots will be open? I think they were the Venice ones, right? Because they were probably the biggest parking lots that we had available.
Yes.
And
yes, Mr. Mayor, that when we met with State Parks yesterday, they indicated that they will be opening up the Venice auxiliary lots as much as they need to during the summer months. And they're right now in the process of recruiting seasonal help, volunteers, to have people at their kiosk during all the busy days during the summer.
Great, because that's fantastic excess space. And if their bathrooms aren't working, do they put porta potties out there instead?
They do. They put 2 porta potties at the Venice auxiliary lots. And as John mentioned, they are in the process of doing improvements to that lot. They're going to replace the bathrooms, and they're going to overlay the parking lot, but that won't happen until next year.
Right.
I believe at the Venice, I saw last year, I think it was 6 or 8 actually portables out here during the high season. Great. They bring in more for high season. Right now, it's probably 2. I think at high season, they bring in upwards of 6 or 8 there to try to replace the 8 to 10 that were lost out of the building there, the permanent ones that they're not using right now and shut down with.
So maybe we can track that with them as to what we consider high season, picking up quicker than they might think, or get some of those extra porta potties out there, because it's such a huge parking lot. I imagine we get a lot of use. In terms of, I understand the issue with the smaller garbage cans, whether on the trail or on the beach, how quickly they fill up, the inability necessary, to be able to necessarily get people around there to empty them. Maybe we can at least have signs, cool signs, where those garbage cans were, could be, that say, hey, there's a beautiful there's a beautiful garbage facility in the park, 50 steps away or something, to encourage people to just take those extra steps to bring their garbage over where we'd like them to. So just constant reminders, something. A quick question, stupid question I have about diapers, since that is not a pretty topic when it comes up on the streets. Do we need special garbage cans for those, like biohazard ones, or they could go kind of anywhere? But okay, so if we don't, can we just maybe put signs up on certain cans and, not everyone knows that, just say, hey, for diapers. And people can say, oh, yeah, there's those special diaper cans, and anything that kind of incentivizes people maybe to think, oh, yeah, we should put them there. I don't know how much impact that might have, but it might work. What were the other questions I had? Yeah, that automated parking system, the interface. So I don't know enough about interfaces, but we seem to have an expert on the Planning Commission, and Rick Hernandez. Maybe, we can ask him, are there some better systems that will interface well with the sheriff's system for being able to monitor? Are they a lot more expensive? Is it worth it? I'm just curious if...
Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, and maybe I've misunderstood this, I believe when Rick was talking about the interface, he was talking about the actual experience using the machine as it is right now. The software that John mentioned that we're beta testing right now would be to go to touchless. So once you have the app on your phone, you can then pay from your phone, and you don't.
So he was only
even
referring
if the interface on the machine is clunky, you don't have to use it anymore because you can do it all from your phone.
And then from the sheriffs, they use a different app related deal with, but they can access all the information, again, touchless and wirelessly.
Great.
That's not an issue. It's just when they switched over to the new machine and the new upgraded machine.
Got it.
Guts. We have the same basic box, but they upgraded all the guts. Their interface, and this is a major firm. This is a firm that's that does these all over the place. I don't know why it's got the interface that it has.
To your point about getting an extra box, so if we get an extra box, which is also might be helpful if one box breaks down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm assuming if there's a breakdown in the box, it was not necessarily would be a software issue that both boxes break down at the same time, or something happening with the company that runs them, in which case 2 boxes might not be so great. But I think that might be a good idea. And also, if we can there's ways of letting people know to download the app ahead of time, one on social media, but also if we know the lines, if we have a thing, we draw where that line should be, we can put up a few little signs that say, please download the app now. So by the time they get to the box.
The signage for Flowbird is out there, and I actually apologize because it really should have been covered up a long time ago. We anticipated, Flowbird is the app.
Right.
And we anticipated the app going live a long time ago. And this has been,
so it's already there. Great.
This has been a great frustration.
Great.
Beyond belief. And it was dealing with with banking, our own banking folks, their folks. It had nothing to do with computers and interface or anything else. It was all about how we account for the banking issues and security issues with our money. So this is what's taken some time to deal with. And I'll say this, the dilemma I have is looking at a second unit is I don't know that I would go with the same company. And then we're stuck with either having 2, with each one of them being a different company, or we're dealing with buying 2 because we want to get 2 that are the same company after we've made a pretty significant investment in the current unit, both in terms of about 3 years ago, a complete replacement of that, and recently about a $2,000 investment in software and hardware.
Yeah. All right. Well, work in progress.
And Mr. Mayor, I think we do have to give the app a chance. We've come this far.
Yep.
Once the work, people realize it works and they get used to it, and they've done it a couple times to get the app on their phone. I think we got to give it a chance and see what impact it has. I think it will have an impact. And then the other reminder, for some people, this is an answer, not for everyone, but certainly for some people, we do have the annual passes for $180. And so once you pay for an annual pass, you then don't have to go to the machine either. You get a sticker on your car and you can park there all the time, provided you find a parking space.
And there's a 9-month pass as well at a lower cost. So there are two options.
Great. The last thing I will mention is just to reiterate the point that Councilmember Penrose mentioned and others. This is just always going to be the most visible and reactive issue right here on the coast side. We get more feedback, more on next door, at our council meetings with photos, the traffic, it's the most visible issue. So, and I agree with you, John, we do need to be, flexible and adaptable. And to me, that means just don't hesitate to ask for more resources, whether it's for contractors, for cleanup, whatever it takes, getting more folks, giving more money to Abundant Grace. Let's just stay on top of it right away and anticipate it. And I realize, pouring money and bodies isn't the only solution, but with the kind of, amounts of garbage and crowds and stuff, I think I'd rather overreact a little bit maybe this summer because we don't know what to expect and see what the pace is. And overreact's not the right word, but just really assure that we're not short of resources. If we have to pay Republic more, and just come to us quickly, if things are just escalating fast, whatever, we can schedule a quick meeting and, get the funding for you. So just don't hesitate is all I'm saying, and keep us abreast of it. And thanks everybody. Thanks, Saul. This was great.
Would you like, I know I see Debbie's hand is raised also, but would you like us to answer a few of those council questions, or do you want to leave those?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Did Debbie want to go? I'm not.
I just wanted to second, Robert's ask to come to us if you need resources for the reasons that I think that Rick Hernandez was so articulate about. Tourism is what we do, and we want to do it right, and we want to do it well. So the resources that we invest, typically I think are very reasonable for the purpose of, supporting our economy, and making people want to be here. So I support that, Robert.
Great, thanks. Yeah, John, you and Bob had some more responses.
Yeah, and I know Bob will answer or give you a response on the issue of Abundant Grace, but I'll hit on the more technical sides of this. As for Deborah's question about signage down on the beach, we will include our A-frame and signage talking about leave no tracks, leave nothing but tracks, some of those things, and deal with that, which we did last year. And State Parks has agreed to allow us to expand that over at least into the access points into the coastal trail and along the area. So we'll try to expand that as much as possible and work on that messaging and do the best we can with that. With regard to the lighting, it's an idea. I know that the Coastal Commission has not been necessarily thrilled with that. I also venture a guess that the neighborhood would have some issues with that. I think the last piece of that is there's a real question as to whether the trail itself is open 24 hours or whether it actually is a park, and technically could be argued that it closes at sunset, and that's something we've never actually gone and really tested the waters on which we want to take on that linear park or whether that's beach. But in any event, I think there's some challenges with that, although I think everybody would agree that there's something to say about some lighting and security. We do have the bike tuning station at Poplar. We also have them in some other locations, including the library and the trail, also near Seymour and Magnolia on the Naomi Patridge Trail, and we can certainly look at those. They aren't inexpensive, but they're not horribly expensive. We can take a look at that next year's budget, if that's a desire to look for something at Kelly Avenue.
What was the location that was recommended?
Around Kelly Avenue, right at Kelly Avenue.
Okay.
And, yeah, right there. So, I mean, you know, and we can talk to state parks about, you know, maybe even putting it more on their site and the trail right there at that access point, if there's a desire to do that. With regard to the programming, we do have a relationship with Pacific Beach Coalition, as was noted by one of the council members. COVID has killed off all of these efforts for the most part. Sea Hugger does some small cleanups. Pacific Beach Coalition is doing some small cleanups, but they're really small groupings. But Pacific Beach Coalition itself really runs a whole program that brings youth, industry, nonprofit partners, all of this into basically creating these beach cleanups. We have not had a chance to see what Pacific Beach Coalition can do in Half Moon Bay. We are in constant contact with them. Bob and staff, we've met with them before COVID hit to get a run up toward the work this last year. And of course, everything just collapsed on us from that point. So we commit to that. Certainly, we're asking Pacific Beach Coalition as our primary partner to try to run and manage the beach cleanups around Half Moon Bay, to also engage, obviously, with the youth and try to engage the high schools and all those things. So we agree that that's a great place to go with that. With regard to the access through railroad, we agree that there's way too many access points there. I think the only way to address that would be to literally fence those areas we don't want to, and realize that that will only stop people so much. But that really is the only way to go, and is to put the split rail or wood fence or not wood fence if we don't want them to be potentially burned for firewood down along that area. But you know, that's an expensive proposition. We can price it and talk about it when we come back with CIP for next fiscal year, if there is a desire to do that. And certainly Surf Riders is a great partner as well in all of this, and we've been working closely with them. And Veronica has really been running from the sustainability efforts on that, and going from there. I will jump a little bit on the trash cans again. Is that first and foremost, most people are either traveling out with their beach gear one way or traveling in. And most of them are hitting close either to Kelly and coming from the State Beach, maybe to Poplar. But really, from that point, frankly, I think most of the people on the trail aren't really generating a lot of trash, or they're carrying it and putting it in their pocket. We were just having a discussion online about how we stuff the doggy bag in our pocket and we carry it to the next trash can or home even at that point. I did that today, in fact, with that on my own walk. It's just what you do. And the coastal trail itself does get some garbage, but just trying to extend our services down there is a real challenge. And I'm not sure to what gain we get to, particularly with our friends with Abundant Grace and assisting our efforts there. And in any event, we can certainly take a look at the diaper issue. I don't think that there's probably the volume. And once again, we'd be looking at small garbage cans, which would not necessarily be ever in the location that people would seem to find them for their diapers. But we can take a look at it. I think it's a great idea. I just am, I guess, cynical about human behavior right now.
The sign would have to be 10 times bigger than the can. You know, that might get it to the small can.
I'll leave it as
big sign.
You know, after you know, this many years dealing with with Poplar and the beach issues and all those things, I've just grown cynical on human behavior. I apologize for that. I try to stay positive, but it's tough. And but I'll leave it to Bob. I think he wanted to talk about Abundant Grace.
Sure, I'll wrap up. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I wholeheartedly agree with the comments made by some members of the public and some of the council members. The beaches, our open spaces, are our #1 assets. And so we have an obligation and a duty to take care of them and manage them. And that includes providing amenities for locals, and visitors who visit the open spaces and beaches, and provide nice amenities that work for the public. So to that question and point about making sure we apply the resources we need, your council, of course, has done a couple things recently that will help in that regard. We don't earmark funds, of course, but we go through our normal budget process and make these decisions. The council makes the decisions about how to allocate funds. But of course, recently we did increase the parking fee at Poplar from $2 an hour to $10. And we also passed a tax measure to increase TOT from 12% to 15%. So again, these are not items that are earmarked in any way, but this was in response to this both asset and liability that we are a tourist town, and we need to mitigate those impacts and provide the amenities that the people need when they come. So that's the good news. And I would also then add, that the stimulus bill just passed, and that's a whole nother topic that we can talk about later. So I agree that we need to apply the resources appropriately to our most important assets. That said, yeah, it was Councilmember Penrose at the beginning of this meeting. I'll go full circle now, who did raise the issue of an increasing Abundant Grace's contract. She mentioned 50%. And I think it would be reasonable for the other council members to weigh in on that. And if that's the direction of the council, I don't think we need a motion on that. Just give us some broad direction. And then I would advise that we come back, because I think it would make sense. It's good to start with a number like 50%, but I think it would make sense for us to go talk to Abundant Grace and really describe what the scope would be. We want to make sure if they're going to increase their scope by, say, up to 50%, that they do it in a way that we agree with, and that really focuses on the heavy use areas that we know are going to come in the summer months. So it would make sense for us to go back, talk to them, make sure they can gear up, see what the right number is, see how the scope would change, and also see where we would pay for the increase in the contract amount. And then, of course, we would amend the contract and bring it back to the council in one of the April meetings. And back to the stimulus money that is forthcoming, that certainly will be an item that we put on your council's agenda at some point in the future when we know more about it. But I can tell you right now, as an example, this increase to Abundant Grace's contract would be eligible for the stimulus funds we are going to get. So we might recommend that be a source that we use for this enhancement. But that leads to a whole nother conversation, and I will probably recommend that at some point the council look at that as a unified whole and don't spend the stimulus money kind of piecemeal. But this is an example. Certainly, any enhancement to Abundant Grace contract would be, it looks like it's eligible for that stimulus funds that we expect to get in a few months. So if that's so, just like to hear consensus of council, if there's agreement with Councilmember Penrose's idea.
Yeah, I would rather take the approach that that staff go to Abundant Grace and see what sort of capacity they have to apply to the work, and if they can't with existing, can they, recruit more? I mean, I support getting Abundant Grace more involved, if they have the capacity. I wouldn't say 50% without knowing, is that reasonable? I'm going to let staff sort of make that interpretation, but happy to accommodate more service and pay for more service from Abundant Grace, but I'm going to let you figure out what that right number is.
All right.
What she said.
Good. Deborah?
You're muted, Deborah.
Sorry, I mentioned the 50% figure because I did have a previous conversation with Abundant Grace about whether or not, what their thoughts were on what they could do. And that was a figure that they came up with that they thought they could handle. So I think it's a good idea for staff to get together with them and formalize it and figure it out. I'm happy to go along with that.
Joaquin, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, actually, we would like to see about how to get Bantam Grace involved in more cleaning.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea about the beach, but I'm also concerned about the creek area. Uh, I know a lot of the participants on the program. They stay at the creek. So just working with them, providing with some cleaning equipment, going back to the dumpster, maybe more garbage bags to have so they can do their own cleanup, and maybe doing that.
I know you mentioned that to me before, and I think we were talking about working some now with Republic Services. It's going to include
Yeah.
dumpster and something
Yeah,
like
but it's I know I've had conversations with some of the participants on the Abundant Grace program, about some of the cleanup around the city, and some of them have mentioned, Joaquin, we want to clean the creek. They are interested, but they need a few more tools, and some guidance on doing so to approach the cleaning. So I think we sit down with the Abundant Grace, come up with a plan. It will be great, to see what are the areas that we are requiring, to get more cleaning.
John, can you take a note of that? Because that's also a real proactive piece, anything around cleaning up of creeks later on.
But I would like to say this. The creeks are protected habitat. And first and foremost, we are trying to, and I think why the council approved and moved forward with, with accepting the co-site in conversion is to hopefully get these folks to move out of the creek. And ultimately our, desire is to clean the creek up. The state or the San Francisco Water Board and the State Water Board are hammering jurisdictions, will continue to hammer us about pollution, including the homeless in the creek area. And ultimately those creeks are environmentally sensitive areas, which basically we're not even allowed to touch the water in those technically without having permits in place from various ABCs of agencies. So I think we have to be very careful about what we're doing, what we're advocating for, and what we want to do, and what is our objective.
So I suggest that maybe we take that offline as a separate, another conversation just specifically about creeks, because it seems to involve a lot of extra factors. And I think it would be good just to, for tonight, at least keep our arms around, get our arms around the beach cleanups, which is what this tonight's report was about, but not to lose sight of if there's anything we can do around the creeks, taking into consideration all the other environmental pieces. If we do this, I definitely would love to, I think it's great to do, enhance the contract with Abundant Grace. And I was thinking that it's also probably be designated as a 6-month period, basically, from May through September, May through October. That's what we're focusing on, right? That's when the real high season extra cleanup would be needed for these areas versus, I think it'd be good just to frame it like that. What are the concentrated resources and how much it would cost for that 6-month period. Do you need more direction now regarding Abundant Grace, or is that
No, I think the direction's clear. All 5 of you spoke, and we'll go back, talk with Abundant Grace, and we will put together a scope of work, figure out what the best way, the timing, where to do it, whether or not we can have some work done in the creek or not. We'll work it all out. We'll work out all the details, and it'll come back as a contract amendment at a future meeting.
Great. And Joaquin, I'd be happy to work with you on a separate staff meeting to look at all that cleanup piece. So that would be great. Okay, then, are we ready for someone to make a motion to accept this action plan?
So moved.
Okay. Second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thanks, everyone. This was a very, just great work. It's going to be a continuing topic, so thanks, everybody. Let's move on to commission committee updates. Do we have any commission committee updates at this point? I didn't think so, but just check in. I don't see anyone raising their hand. Items for future discussion. Deborah? Deborah, mute, please, unmute.
I received an email from a member of the Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. They have a Half Moon Bay group here. And what they're asking us to do is adopt a safe storage ordinance. And I don't know how much work this would require, but the idea is requiring all firearms in private residences to be securely stored in a locked container, or to have the firearms themselves disabled with a trigger lock. So I would like to see us pass an ordinance like this. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was I'd like us to look at the issue of leaf blowers and the noise and gas pollution that they produce sometime in the future.
Sounds good.
I want to second what Deborah just said. I previously brought up the leaf blower issue, so I think we should get a little quiet in our community. So thank you.
Yeah, what did people do with the leaves before leaf blowers? That's what I always wonder. Somehow they got rid of them. Anyway, okay. No other items? Any city council reports?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just as kind of a process, so we do have our priority setting workshop coming up next week.
Yep.
And so I will make sure that both of these items are on the list for the council to discuss at priority setting workshop, and they can then be discussed with all the other priorities, and a decision can be made at that time if those items rise to the top to be included in our work plan.
Sounds great. Thanks. Appreciate it, Bob.
Yeah, I had actually asked the rep from Moms Demand Action to actually come to a council meeting to make a presentation.
Okay.
I mean, I think we want to investigate what the need is here, and I want to hear about how these things work before I commit to an ordinance. I'd like us to, get information. So at the very least, without a priority setting meeting, someone could come to a city council meeting and make a presentation about, their work and about these sorts of ordinances.
Debbie, that would be, I think that would be great, because I definitely have questions about the enforceability, how that works with those types of ordinances.
I would want to get more information before putting on a priority list or whatever. And I actually suggested that they contact Jessica to schedule a presentation in advance of our priority setting. Like back in November or December, and I guess that didn't happen. But I certainly would want to, I'm not saying I'm against it, but before we're assigning staff time, I want to understand what it is and what the need is and what it entails. So.
Sounds good. Okay. Any city council reports? None. Great. Okay. Good work tonight. I thought this would last much longer. So I think we got through a lot of interesting issues with good speed. So thanks, everybody. We will next get together for our priority session. And the next council meeting will be 3 weeks from tonight. Thanks, everyone. Safe travels. Seeing everybody.
Take care.
Good night.
Meeting is adjourned.